Poppets. Welcome to episode 4 of the Poppet Pals review. We are two excellent best friends, or should I say two groovy best friends who enjoy horror movies and want to talk about them and share our opinions with the world. I'm Derek.
And I'm Katie.
And we are super excited this week because the announcement of Evil Dead Rise. Well, not the announcement, but the trailer was released. Now it's been like 2 weeks ago, but fairly recently.
Yeah. Once this oh my gosh. Okay, for just a PSA, I have had the flu all weekend and I am on cough medicine right now, and I almost just said for the recipe instead of for the record, but anyway.
She has that she has that fungus from The Last of Us. So it's unfortunately. Just kidding.
But I totally lost my train of thought too.
Oh, did it?
What was I gonna say?
Oh,
Yep.
It's okay.
It's the fungus.
It's the fungus.
Anyways, yes, just bear with us this week.
Yeah. You get a free pass.
I'm sure that thought will come back in about 10 minutes. Oh, no, I do remember what I was going to say.
Oh, here it is.
As you're listening to this, it will have been some time since the Evil Dead Rise trailer has come out. But as we're recording this, it's new. So we are doing this episode this week in honor of that new trailer.
Yes. That is correct. Okay, good recovery.
that is where I was going with that.
Maybe you're not infected after all.
It's just the drugs.
Yeah, just the drugs. Yes.
Just the drugs.
On that note, we have a lot to talk
Okay.
about, so I'm going to go into our weekly horror update. Do you want to go first? Like, what exciting horror thing happened this week for you?
Yes, my horror happening for this week.
Yes.
Yeah, since I was sick, I actually did watch a lot of movies. So I did start out with Gone in the Night with Winona Ryder. It's on, I believe, Hulu, if I remember correctly.
I saw a preview for that.
It was pretty good. It was a suspense. It was a little bit predictable to a certain point. When you got a certain ways into the movie, you were like, oh, this is totally what's happening.
Yeah.
But it was still good, I thought, in my opinion. After that, I watched House of Darkness with Justin Long and Kate Bosworth, which I didn't like it.
Oh.
I was actually really disappointed. I thought it was going to be really good, but it was
You had me excited for a second.
really slow. It was really slow moving, and then one thing happens, and then it ends. It's kind of weird.
Oh, that's sad.
Then, I know, it was very sad. I'm trying to go really quick because I did watch so much this week since I wasn't really doing anything else. I did watch the first episode of The Last of Us.
Me too.
I did really like, and we might be doing an episode of that maybe at some point in the future.
We might.
I don't know, when the first season's over or something.
We might.
I also, what else did I do? Oh, I actually, leading into what we're going to be talking about today, I did watch a really interesting top 10 YouTube video of side stories within major horror movies, which was really interesting, and one that popped out with me since today we are talking about Evil Dead and Evil Dead 2. There's a theory from Jason Goes to Hell that Jason's actually a Deadite, and it ties in with Evil Dead. So I thought that was cool.
Ooh. Hold that thought. Hold on to that thought.
Yep. And then finally, of course, I am still reading my new Stephen King book that I got, and it's really good still. I'm probably going to quit mentioning that since it's taking me so long to get through it until I get actually through it. But I think that's all I did this week. I feel like I watched another movie too, but I can't remember what it is now. And then, of course, I did watch Evil Dead and Evil Dead 2 for today's recording.
Because I made you.
Because it was Derek's pick to talk about these movies, and unfortunately, I have never actually seen Evil Dead 2.
I was shocked.
So I had to refresh myself with Evil Dead and then watch the second one.
Oh boy, you just jumped right into those waters.
Oh boy.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Well, you did a lot more than me. Mine.
I had nothing else to do.
Oh, gosh. I need to I need to get sick just for a couple of days so I can watch some
Get the
movies.
fungus.
But I too watched The Last of Us. I'm a big fan of the game, so I jumped right into that and I love it. I hope we get to talk about it later. Go watch it. What else did I do? I got a recommendation for us for a future movie that I still need to watch. I haven't had time to watch. Refresh my mind, Katie. What did I tell you we need to watch for the viewers?
Midsummer.
That's it. Yes,
Midsummer. Yep.
So look forward to us talking about that hopefully sometime in the future. And other than that, I've kind of slacked this week. Nothing else very scary except doing Evil Dead research. I think that's about it. And, going to work. Going to work is scary. Being an adult.
That is the scariest thing of all.
Adulthood. Yes.
Adulthood.
So, well, that's it for me. I'm gonna fast forward us into this. Buckle up, because we're not gonna really do our typical. We do a spoiler-free thing, but since these movies have been around, gosh, it's been like 40 years. If that doesn't make everyone here feel a little bit older, it's been 40 years since the first Evil Dead.
Just a little bit older.
Which is crazy. But I guess we'll just kind of go through and talk about the first one and kind of like go into that and how the second one came to be, because these movies have an odd history that's as odd as Bruce Campbell and Sam Raimi themselves. So it'll be interesting. So I guess we'll just jump right in.
So are we starting with the first movie or?
Yeah, we're starting with
Because
Evil
I have
Dead.
notes. I wrote down notes. You should be proud of me. I was you this week.
Yeah, I saw
I
your
have
notes.
notebook paper.
Those notes are real, folks. Like she did some thinking here, more than I did. But going into it, I don't think Sam Raimi found his voice yet with this movie. He found a lot of his, and you'll agree on this because I think we talked about it. But he found some of his Sam Raimi-isms in this, because he tried to make he did make a horror movie, like a more serious, straightforward horror movie with this one. And back in the 80s, I imagine it being the movie that you dared your friends to see because of all the gore, all the bloodshed.
Yeah.
And it was just disgusting, gross out your friends, make them pass out in theaters, type of movie back then. But I don't know, plot wise, group of friends go to a cabin. They're just going to hang out. They find a tape. Of course, they play it, and it's a professor reading from the Necronomicon, the Book of the Dead, unleashes basically hell, all these demons upon them, and they take them one by one, and that's the story. But I don't know, what'd you think, because I really like the setting of this movie, this isolated cabin thing, and the atmosphere at the beginning was really good. I thought that's my first plus column. Do you agree with that?
Yeah.
Do you like the setting and stuff?
So that's the first thing I wrote down. My notes are all over the place. I would post them on our Instagram, except it's ridiculous and no one would even know what I was talking about. But
I do.
the opening feel, it feels very old school horror movie. Like the scenes of the opening credits and the setting, and it's just like I talked about, I think
creepy.
with Halloween, I think it was Halloween, like where that is your typical babysitter story. This is like your typical campfire out in the woods with your friends story you're gonna tell. Like a group of people are out in an abandoned cabin and blah blah blah, it's haunted, whatever. That part I like. I like the concept of the movie. I liked the opening credit scenes. And it feels the whole thing the whole time with the first one feels like one of those movies, you know, when you're watching a scary movie and the people in the movie are watching an old scary movie and there's like just a girl screaming for no reason. That's what this movie felt like. It felt like it's the movie that other people in movies should be watching in the background.
Well, you know what? You're not wrong, because guess what, Nancy? If Nancy was watching this in A Nightmare on Elm Street, if you remember.
Nightmare on Elm Street, is she? I'd have to look back. I don't know if I'd have to look back at it.
And fun fact, because I'll forget it when we get into Evil Dead 2, Freddy Krueger's claw is hanging up in the cabin in Evil Dead 2.
What?
Yeah,
I didn't notice that at all.
I was saving this for later, but who cares? Because the guy who was working on special effects for Evil Dead 2 was also working on Nightmare on Elm Street 3, Dream Warriors. So he brought Freddy's claw onto set and just hung it up as like a little Easter egg. Fun fact for you.
Well, that's cool. Yeah, I did. I definitely didn't notice that. Of course, I sometimes am oblivious on my first watch throughs, but
it's hard to
I'll have
see.
to look back at that.
It's just hanging on the wall, I think, or in the tool shed, one or the other. But it's like really hard to notice.
Huh, that's cool.
But if we're grading this, if we're grading this, atmosphere's good. But I guess we should jump into the characters, because this is something we agree on. There really aren't characters in this movie. They're all just kind of bland.
I don't like, and I take that back. I don't like either of the guys. I don't like Ash.
Ash is very lame in this movie. I agree. He's a coward.
All three of the girls look very similar to me, and I kept getting them mixed up in the beginning as to like who was a girlfriend to who, or a sister or whatever. I kept getting them all mixed up because I was like, they're very similar looking.
They don't really have distinct personalities.
The third one's name.
Oh, me neither. It's gone, because there's Cheryl.
Now since Cheryl, Linda, and then hold on, maybe it's in my notes because.
Oh, I know you made a note about her at one point. It
starts with an S, right? I think it starts with an S, like Shelly or Sally or whatever. Anyways,
doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. She's very bland. Very bland.
Doesn't matter. Now, but Linda is freaking creepy. The actress they got to be Linda in the first Evil Dead movie, she is so good at it. Like her laugh, her mannerisms, like the way she did it, she was so good, and she was so much better than the actress that plays Linda in Evil Dead 2. The one in Evil Dead 2 is not near as creepy to me, and it's not because she was a little claymation figure. It's like the actual Linda actress. She just was not as good.
Well, okay, if we're getting into that, because we established characters very bland. Ash in this movie very lame, very cowardly. Like, he's not the superhero he is later. Mm-hmm. All the characters kind of. I mean, I like Cheryl. Cheryl was kind of interesting because she's kind of artsy, and she's the only one that with any logic saying we need to get the hell out of there. No one listens to her.
Okay, well, this might be. I made a lot of nitpicking at notes, but she was not being logical at first when she was sitting in the bath. I think she was in a bathroom drawing for some reason. I don't know, but she was drawing, and then something literally possesses her hand, draws the Book of the Dead, like takes over her body, and then she's like, oh, well, that was normal. Let's go eat dinner and not tell my friends at all.
They do. They literally go eat dinner and have hot dogs or whatever.
Like, ma'am, if that happened to me, I'd be like, bye. Like, we're leaving now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. This trip is over. But, it's almost like she knew the people she was with because they didn't believe her about the trees. So she was probably like, why are they going to believe me about my hand? I don't know. I'm with a group of jerks. Especially Scotty. Scotty, the blonde guy, is a stereotypical jerk. in this
But
movie.
you know, I think Ash is too.
Yeah,
I do.
he
I think he. The whole time I was like, he is a total creep, and like I don't
and
know
kind of
whose
stupid.
artistic idea it was. In the beginning, before people start turning into crazy monster, deadite, whatever's, um, he there's a scene of him and Linda sitting on the couch, and he puts like a gift in his hand and then pretends to be asleep, and there's like this
So
close up
weird.
of him and her shutting and closing, or shutting and opening their eyes over and over again, and it's so weird and uncomfortable. And then he's like, "Are you trying to steal from the sleeping man?" or whatever he says. And I'm like, "Oh, you're such a freaking creep. I would never go on a
Yeah.
date with you. You're so weird."
Yeah. So we talked about the characters. We should definitely talk about the effects and the monsters, because that's what really matters. Because this movie's all about the scares. It doesn't really care about its characters at all. So you got to look at that. So, book is read, evil's released. It takes Cheryl first. We get that awful scene in the woods that would never happen today, where the tree does terrible things to her. Um, that was kind of awful, and cringy. I don't know. I don't really like the tree part, but and then she's possessed, and I really liked the possession scene of Cheryl. I thought that was creepy. She's like reading the cards, and she's suddenly psychic because she has these devil powers now, and she just turns around and she's got this like demonic face, and I was like, whoa, that is so creepy. But then in the next couple of scenes, and we talked about this, that they took some putty and clay and just smushed it on her face, and it ruined the effect
It ruined it.
completely for me.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, we talked about that, didn't we? Yeah.
Yeah,
That
we did.
totally ruined it. And they did it to the other one too.
Yeah. Yeah, they did. They did it to the girl, poor woman.
Shelley?
We can't remember her name.
Is her name
Shelly? Is it Shelly?
Shelly. It's Shelly. Yeah. I didn't
It's
Google
gonna
that.
be Shelly now. I don't know.
I didn't look that up at all.
Definitely didn't Google that. Okay.
Nope.
So yeah, it was Shelly and the guy. What's
Scotty?
the guy's name?
Yeah.
Scotty. See, I still can't remember
Yeah.
these characters. That's how unmemorable they are.
It's okay. Yeah. But they didn't do it as
They
heavily
did it with
on
all
Linda.
of them. Linda.
They didn't do it
and
as
she
heavily
was by
on her.
far the creepiest person.
Because it was subtle. You had the eyes,
Yeah.
and like they did her cheeks, and
She
that
had the
creepy
eyes,
smile.
she had blush, and I think some blue eyeshadow, and then the teeth work. And
That
that's,
was it.
I think, all they needed for all of them. Like, if
it
they
was-
had all looked like that,
Yes. And
beautiful.
I think it's funny because spoiler alert, Cheryl makes an appearance in Ash vs. the Evil Dead and looks 1,000 times better with her makeup and stuff
Yeah,
there. Of
I
course, it's
didn't
modern
get that
age
far.
stuff, but they didn't pile it on her.
Yeah, there were lots of times where I kept having to remind myself that this was not a recent movie. Like,
Yeah. Yeah. There's a
that's
lot of
what
stop
I
motion. Mm-hmm.
yeah, that's the thing I don't like about Sam Raimi. So, with a
Mhm.
lot of his movie monsters, he just overdoes it.
Overkill.
Like,
Of course. his
sometimes
style, I
simple is
guess.
better.
Yeah.
And there's a difference for me. This is just my personal opinion, like what I like in a horror movie. There's a line where it goes up to it that it's creepy, it's scary, it's gory in a good way, or makes you feel uncomfortable in a good way. And then if you cross that line, it becomes gross, not in a good way, makes you feel uncomfortable, not in a good way. Like, it's just nasty. Like, it's the same with his gypsy woman in Drag Me to Hell. Like, she wasn't scary, she was just gross. It was just gross. And it was like, I don't want to look at that. And I mean, I guess that is a form of horror. I guess it's doing its job if you're like, I don't want to look at that.
Gross
but
out. Yeah.
It's in my mind not like, oh, that's sick. Like, that's sick makeup. No, it's she looks like she has STDs all over her face, and that's gross. Please
Mhm,
go away.
mhm,
Like,
mhm.
it makes me not want to
Yeah.
watch the movie.
Not
Um,
yeah. It's
and
even
his
like
style
yeah.
is that way too. Like, his style is very gratuitous. Like, he goes
Mhm.
overboard, and it's
Yes.
too much. Like, less is better. I think less would be
In
way better in this case.
in this movie especially, less would have been a lot more. You already have the
Yeah.
atmosphere, you've got creepy,
Like,
all the elements are
Linda's
there.
makeup, it's literally just blush, eyeshadow, the contacts, and the teeth work. And she is terrifying. Like, her acting
Yeah,
is
her
great
laugh.
for the time. It's her laugh and the stuff she puts into the character
Mhm.
is so good. But if all four of them had been like that, it would have been terrifying. The others you can't even take seriously. Like, it's
Yeah.
laughable the way they look at
Yeah.
some points in the movie. Given I know this was done in the 80s, but still,
Yeah.
if they could make Linda look that good, why couldn't the others look good?
Yeah.
And there's one
Yeah.
point in the graveyard scene, I think I had mentioned to you, I don't know if you went back and looked at it or not, but for some reason, Linda, like, when she pops back out of the ground after he's buried her, they've done the putty face to her too. But then when they like start, and I'm
Yes.
like, why? And it looked like almost they put like a wig on her too. I don't think it was even her at one point. It looked like a dummy or something. And
Yeah,
then
I
when
remember
he
that.
chops off her head, it's back to the like creepy makeup, which was good. But I was like, why make
It was
that
good.
change? Like, why do that for one scene? Like, what was the thinking behind that? But
Yeah.
yeah, I don't. That's just why I
This
don't like Sam Raimi in general. I think he goes way too
this
overboard, and he crosses a line that shouldn't be crossed. Like with the tree scene, hated that whole
mhm.
thing. Hated the
Yeah.
tree assault,
I do
whatever you want to
too.
call it. It's so unnecessary. Like, why muddy something up with unnecessary content just to be outrageous? It's the same problem I have with more
Yeah.
recent seasons of American Horror Story.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, the first couple seasons of American Horror Story, they were outrageous. There was some hard stuff to watch in it, but it was pertinent to the story. They did it in a way where it was really creepy and scary and good. But as it went on, they were just trying to top themselves with more and more outrageous
R-
stuff. And it was like, I don't want to
Yes.
watch this. Like, why do I
Yes.
want to watch this?
Um
The tree
but
thing, I think it would have been just as fine because he redoes it in Evil Dead 2, right? With the other girl,
I think it's
like the country girl. But
briefly it happens.
it's not an assault. It's just it's very similar to what happens in to the brother in Poltergeist, where the tree like attacks him from the
Ah.
bedroom window and it just wraps around him, and that's all that's needed. Like, why take it that extra step when it's something so uncomfortable for a lot of people? It's really triggering, which again, I know
Yes.
this was the 80s, but still in the 80s, I mean, come on, like, who wants to
Yeah.
watch that? Why was it pertinent to the storyline? Why, I mean, he
Yeah.
could have just had it like, which is still suggestive, I guess, but if a branch had like gone in her mouth, like something was like taking her over, or like she was getting possessed, I think it would
That's
have looked the exact same. Probably would have
well,
gotten the storyline over better.
that's kind of where my mind went originally before, the really bad part happens. Like at first, that's what I think is happening. That's where my mind goes like, "Oh, it's tying her down to take her over." Like that's what I thought was happening, but we know she goes back to the cabin after and tries to tell people, and no one listens to her. They say, trees don't move, blah, blah, blah. And I'm wondering if that was like a metaphor for, like, I don't know. Like, yes, yes. And then, we know what happens to Scotty later because
Which I
he
get
didn't
that.
listen.
I get that, and if that's the message you're wanting, I think that's fine if you want that to be an underlying message. But I don't think you need to show it. I think you can imply that something like
Suggest
that
it.
happened without
Yeah,
being
totally.
so triggering. And it's the same with movies like Last House on the Left. Totally could have been implied, not shown. Um, and there's another, I'm sure there's a billion more, but yeah,
Well,
it's just why it's just unnecessary and kind of takes you out of the creepiness of the
agreed.
rest of the movie.
But I will say that in many ways, where this movie fails, the remake succeeds in a lot of ways.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the remake's not gold. It's not the best horror movie ever, but it did a great job, because I have to talk about it. It did a great job as, first of all, an homage to the original, and then doing its own thing, and actually, like, you know, telling a story, because there's actually a reason they go to the cabin, because you saw this with me. You blocked it out of your mind, but you saw it with me a long time ago. Yeah, you remember. But they go to the cabin because they're friends on heroin, and she's going there to like detox basically, and that's like the story. She's there with her friends. If you kind of remember
in
that,
the remake,
sorta?
the remake.
In the remake,
Okay.
yeah, we're talking about. I'll just briefly
My
the remake.
cough
Yeah.
syrup addled brain. I thought you were talking about Evil Dead 2. Okay.
Oh no.
I'm on
No.
the same page with you now.
Because I was just saying, like, you know, in many ways, you know, they fix a lot of what's wrong with the original in
Gotcha.
the remake, and they
I would
make the gore
definitely have to go
count.
back and watch it. I
think
don't
you
remember the
should.
remake at all.
I think it'd be a good watch for both of us, because I watched a bunch of scenes just to refresh myself, and like the ending of that movie actually meant something, because the heroin protagonist, the addict, literally overcomes her demons and kills her demon with a chainsaw at the end, and that's our chainsaw scene. And it's really cool.
and
Spoiler
that's
alert.
what I said to you is I
Yes.
think that the first original Evil Dead, if it had ended that way, like something really cool where you find out Ash has just gone totally crazy and he's been
Yeah.
alone this entire time, like no friends came to the cabin with him, it would have made the movie way better for me. And
Yeah.
that was
Yeah.
like, honestly, I will be honest, like I just don't really like the original Evil Dead movie. I think it's because of Sam Raimi's style. He just goes overboard on everything, and I'm like, oh my god.
Yeah.
Also the last big kill fight, like when he buries Linda and he's fighting Cheryl, and is his name Scotty? Whatever his name is, the other two. When he's
Scotty,
fighting them all,
Shelley, yeah.
it lasts freaking forever. You're like, oh, finally it's over, and nope, there's another like 10 minutes of him whopping on
Mhm.
deadites.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, but I should not be able to walk after Linda bites basically a third of his calf off,
Mhm.
and then Scotty bites his Achilles tendon. No, sir, you're done. You should be dead.
Yeah,
Anyways,
yeah,
I
he
had a
walks
lot
away.
of rants during this movie. I almost wish I could have recorded myself live watching this, because I think my reactions would have been funny. But I did enjoy the ending part where he initially goes down into the basement and the whole house starts bleeding,
Yeah, that was
and
cool.
he hears a heartbeat. And I think I even told you, it made
did.
me think that it was totally kind of an homage to The Telltale Heart from Edgar Allan Poe, where he
Yeah.
like is going crazy, he hears this heartbeat. I thought that was the most enjoyable part of the movie. It kind of like redeemed it a little bit for me, because
Yeah,
I
it
thought it
was
was
cool.
really good. That was my absolute favorite part of the movie. Besides Linda, I do think Linda, that specific actress, did an amazing job. But
Yeah, me too. There were some
it-
glimmers. There were some glimmers, like
There were
little
some glimmers
shinings
of
of great horror in this that were overshadowed by all the terrible, like all the random gore and bad, like, you know, makeup effects and
Mhm.
stuff like that, and the
there was
awful
there was like
characters.
a record player slowing, and as he was like going crazier, the music
It-
started going like and like slowing down and stuff.
yes, the
It was so
subtlety.
good.
Yeah, like we would have gotten more of stuff like that, like more the house, like doing
Yeah,
stuff.
if the
that
whole
would have
movie
been
had been
terrifying.
subtle, creepy things like that, then throw in Deadite, creepy Linda.
Yeah,
Oh my god, I would love this movie. I would
Yeah.
love it. But
you hear
Sam
that,
Raimi
Sam
had to
Raimi?
go just throw all this other junk in it that I hated.
Yeah, of course. You know, I said there are a lot of things that didn't work, but you know, I don't think, because I'm kind of bridging it over to Evil Dead 2. I don't think he found his voice until that movie. Like, because he does, and you know, he's even said like his specialty, what he does well is more comedic, more dark
Mm-hmm.
humor. He and Bruce Campbell says he's more like he identifies as a comedic actor in a lot of ways too. So when the sequel came along, and like you know, studio everyone was demanding like more, you know, more of that tone of a film. Like I think that's when this, you know, he found his voice, and he Evil Dead found its like actual tone, because that Evil Dead
Yeah.
2, like that tone, that dark humor and just strangeness carries over to Ash, all the way to Ash versus Evil Dead. And I think it works a lot better than it does as like Evil Dead 1, you know, the horror movie. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Kind of. Yeah.
Yeah, it I think he should definitely stick to just dark comedy horror.
Yeah.
Because Evil Dead 2, like, I mean, as a movie, it is feeling like a low budget B movie with its claymation characters and stuff in it, but the hits
And
of the comedy and the extra gore and over the top gore, if it's supposed to be funny, it's not bad. It's when it's serious
yeah.
that you're like, this is not good. But when
Yeah.
it somehow when it's put into a funny situation, then I don't mind all that gore. So I think he did himself wonders by taking that turn into comedy.
Yes. He it's like the movie realized what it was, and it accepted it. It accepted itself,
Yeah.
and then it became
This is
better.
like one of those weird occasions where I'm like, yeah, the sequel is way better than the original. Way
Yes.
better. If you can
That
even really call it a sequel, it's honestly just like,
it's a
let's pretend
requel.
like that first movie doesn't happen. That
It,
never happened. We didn't do that.
it's a requel. It's a requel. And I'm going to just for those of you who don't know the story and are like what the heck is going on with Evil Dead 2. So, I believe it's
It shouldn't even be called
1987.
Evil Dead 2. It
No.
should be like Evil Dead over. Evil Dead over, doing it over. I don't know.
It's
The dead
it's
over.
actually it's actually called Evil Dead Dead by Dawn. That's its name.
Oh,
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm
But,
new
you know,
here.
everyone calls it
Okay.
Evil Dead 2, so it doesn't matter. Who cares, right?
It says Evil Dead 2 on my Fandango
Um
app, so.
oh, okay. Well, you got me there. Maybe that's what they
I'm new
originally wanted to
here.
call
I'm
it.
sorry.
Huh. So the story behind it was Sam Raimi wanted to do a sequel. He directed like this terrible comedy or another movie in between, and it flopped. And then him and Bruce Campbell were like, "We gotta do Evil Dead. We gotta save our careers at this point, or you know we're going under." So they pitched their idea, and it was basically Army of Darkness. I know you haven't seen that, but Ash going to the Middle Ages and fighting Deadites was what he wanted to make. But then like studio, you know, other people were like, no, you need to do something more in tone in line with the first one. So he was like, great, okay, I'll just pick up where the first one left off. But he didn't have the rights to his own movie, and that caused a big problem because like you know and so he had to like retell the story, I guess, like to go with this in this new comedic direction, I guess. And first of all, he couldn't get all the original characters back because of budget, and the original Linda was pregnant, so she couldn't come back. So they had to get a new Linda, change the story to Ash going to the cabin with his girlfriend only, no friends at all. And people that watched it were super confused because they were like, okay, why is he going back to this cabin with a new girl? Is he
That's
stupid?
exactly. That
Why
is
is he
the
going?
first thing I have written on my notes because this was my first time watching it. I literally watched The Evil Dead and then started Evil Dead 2 right after. And the first thing I wrote on my notes for Evil Dead 2 was, you really just took your new girlfriend to the same place you chopped up your old girlfriend.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, that's why it's so confusing. People are like, what's going on? And you really have to, like, I don't know. I guess once you realize it's Linda, you can kind of piece it together from there.
That's
But
what, yeah. I was like, wait, her name's Linda too, and then it starts doing the backstory, and I'm like,
hmm
oh, so we're just gonna pretend that first horrible movie is a mistake and never happened. Okay, okay, let's go.
okay. And you know what? I'm okay with it. It's not canon because Ash vs. Evil Dead like establishes that he went to the cabin with his friends and Cheryl was there and all that. So all that happened. It
And
just
Cheryl comes back apparently, right? So it's like,
yeah.
okay,
Sure.
well, it's a
So
multiverse situation. Okay.
and in Ash vs. Evil Dead, he goes back to his hometown. They all make fun of him, call him Ashy Slashy because he killed all his friends. So
I
it
mean,
happened.
that's the last thing that I wrote on my notes for the first movie. I said, okay, so how are you explaining this to everyone?
Yeah.
That all your friends are chopped up into a million pieces
Which is
and
another
you
joke.
didn't do it?
Like, why is he not in jail right now?
Right. Or like,
um,
how are you alive and how are you not in jail?
yeah, exactly. So we get like a brief recap through new Linda and Ash, and more. We get stop motion Linda dancing in the moonlight, and it kind of sets this comedic weird tone like straight away. And she does your favorite thing where
That
she jumps into the woods.
that oh my god. That, even though I'm not a huge, like, Evil Dead does not rank super high on my horror movie list favorites. That scene of claymation Deadite Linda dancing naked in the forest and then just pirouetting,
ridiculous.
dancer leaping, jazz hands off into the forest going like, wee! That is
Yes.
probably in my top 10 like favorite moments in a movie just because it's so ridiculous.
When
I literally rewound it like 3 times to
Wait,
watch
me
it again
too.
because I was laughing so hard.
Me too. And I also laughed when he takes her to he takes her head to the room and he's gonna chop her up, and the body breaks in with his chainsaw and
Yes, I
accidentally
wrote that
chainsaws
down.
itself.
I
You
wrote
remember
that
that?
down. I said, I love the body with the chainsaw just running really like willy nilly around the cabin.
Yeah. When I say I
It's
love
so good.
when I say I love Evil Dead, that's what I mean. I don't really mean the first movie. I mean that.
Yeah, I actually like I enjoyed the silliness of the second one. I liked it so much better. If this one was the first movie, I would probably like the series a lot more. Because I just like those weird, funny things like that. And there's
And-
so many situations of that in this.
And-
One of the
yeah.
other ones that I laughed a lot is he's outside in the forest and he looks at the house and the house gets eyeballs and a mouth and like talks to him and it's like, I don't remember what it says, but I was like, that looked so stupid and ridiculous and I love
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. Just all of that. And when you told me, you were like, when you said, you know what, Evil Dead would be great if it was just Ash going insane in the house, like things like that. And then you were about to watch Evil Dead 2. I was like, oh boy, you just wait. Because that scene with him in the house and everything comes to life and just starts laughing at him because, he's basically saying you're screwed.
It's so
And
ridiculous.
the demons are laughing at him. And he goes crazy too and starts laughing back. It's one of my favorite scenes in anything.
That scene had like very like Beetlejuice vibes when they're at the table and the shrimp like attacks their face. That's
Yeah.
what it made me think of.
And they came out like a year apart. So I wonder if like Tim Burton got some Evil Dead ideas for Beetlejuice because
I
this
don't
definitely
know,
kind of got that
maybe.
kind of feel. Maybe.
I also liked the little like there were a couple little like funny Easter eggs too, like after he cuts his hand off and he is like going through stuff in the cabin and there's a stack of books and the one on the top is Ernest Hemingway's A Farewell to Arms and I was like
That was good. That was good.
I, like there's so many little things that's comedic in this movie that wasn't in the first movie and that's what makes this movie so much better. So I am so glad that they turned down this comedic aisle and stayed in that lane for the rest of the series because I think it makes it so much better.
I know. Like,
There's also, I'm trying to look over all my notes here of stuff I liked.
It's just like
I loved Thang's evil like hand cousin that was running around. I was like, oh, it's Evil Thang from the Addams Family.
Oh, it's just like making fun of him. It flips him off. Like,
it's so good. Yeah, and then it's like that lady's like, why are you holding my hand? And he's like, I'm not holding your hand. And then the hand's just like sitting there attacking her.
Yeah. Then it gets shot and it makes the saddest little noise in the wall.
I know.
It's like, ow, or something.
I wrote down the giraffe neck lady was funny. I don't even remember what I'm talking about though. Was there a Deadite that had like a super long neck or something?
Well, Henrietta, which for those of you who don't know, is like the main Deadite in the basement in this one. It's the
That's what it was. Yes, it was in the basement.
And her neck becomes lawn.
Yeah,
like a claymation style lawn or something.
She goes from being like a person in makeup to her neck just sprouting like 6 feet high in claymation, and it's just one of those moments you're like, oh my god, if like the more ridiculous something is, the more I'm gonna like it. Yes. I don't if a horror movie for me isn't hitting hard as a creepy, legit, scary movie, this is the avenue I want you to take. Like, the more ridiculous, the more I'm gonna like.
Absolutely. And this movie does that. And I guess it kind of picks up, because I guess you gotta talk about some of the story, because it does introduce some other characters finally after Ash goes insane for a long time. And it introduces Annie, who is the granddaughter or the daughter of the professor. The professor who was reading the Necronomicon, and her mother, Henrietta, is the Deadite in the basement. And they finally, because there's a big joke there I think we were talking about, because the Evil Dead destroys the bridge in both movies at different times. And it's like, how do they get out? And then in this movie, they're like, oh, there's a trail, because they meet like two country people, because they're in Tennessee, I think. So, of course, they meet two country people, and they're like, Bobby Joe and somebody else. I don't know.
And the most like country names you could possibly think of.
Yeah, and they bring them to Ash, and then there's that whole meetup where they, they're fighting each other because Annie thinks he like killed her parents and stuff, and then they lock him in the cellar. And then you get the famous line, "Who's in my fruit cellar?" or whatever she says. Someone's in my fruit cellar. And then then Henrietta starts attacking him, and then chaos ensues from there. But and then we get like the Deadite stuff though, because it takes that guy Annie's with, and then the Force attacks Bobby Joe, right? Because she wanders off into the woods, and we get that tree scene again. Yeah, she's the one
that gets the tree scene again, but they opt not to do the assaults. They just do like what I said that they should have done in the first place. Like, it wraps all around her body. It like tries to hold her down. It chases her through the woods. Yeah, that is completely fine and gets the story across just perfectly fine.
But you were telling me before we go, because we're out of time. Of course, I knew we'd be over time. But you were talking about like the crossovers that were supposed to happen, or like may have happened. Like Jason may have been a Deadite. That was like a theory.
Jason's a Deadite. The Necronomicon. What's it called?
What's called?
The Book of the Dead.
Oh, the Necronomicon. Yeah.
Necronomicon. I get my words.
That's a tough one.
Confused.
It's a big one
sometimes. But anyways, it's in that movie. Like, the actual prop, Sam Raimi loaned it to the director of Jason Goes to Hell. It's in the movie. And then at the end, where they stab Jason with a sword, that's supposed to be the same dagger sword thing that kills the Deadites.
The Kandarian dagger.
And he's supposed to be a Deadite. Yes. They can't call it the Kandarian dagger because of copyright, but that's what it's supposed to be. And
Ooh.
they actually talked to Sam Raimi and like worked with him on it and wanted this to be a theory that Jason's mom read out of the
Necronomicon.
Words are hard, okay?
Necronomicon.
She read out the book to bring Jason back in the original, like when Jason actually comes back. Like that was the theory that she read from the book. He's a Deadite, and that's why he keeps coming back in a supernatural.
Which would be the coolest thing ever.
Fun fact. I wish I could remember the YouTube channel that I watched this video from. If I find it again,
that's fascinating.
I'll post it on like our Instagram or
that
something.
explains so much, because there was a big setup, or like I think there was a comic book about it, because there was like this big demand, like Jason versus Freddy versus Ash was going to be a thing.
Yeah, and then they just did Jason versus Freddy.
Yeah, because they set up the Freddy thing. Freddy pulls down Jason's mask at the end of Jason Goes to Hell. Mm-hmm. Like his glove pulls it down, so it was like totally set up. That movie set it up really well.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
that's a shame. And then
fun fact: Jason's a Deadite.
Yeah, that would have been awesome. And the other disappointment, because this series had so many problems getting things done, but like the whole plan with this reboot and remake and all that, and the one in 2013 was that movie was going to happen, and then I think they were going to do another one with her, like with Mia maybe, but they were going to do Army of Darkness 2 with Bruce Campbell and being Ash again, and then the movie after that they were going to meet up and team up, and I was like, that's the coolest thing I've ever heard. What happened? But
what happened?
Well, now, yeah, disappointments. But we got Ash vs. Evil Dead, which is great, and we got a new Evil Dead movie coming out. So here's hope.
Speaking of, what are your thoughts on the trailer, just real quick?
Oh, I thought it was good. I think it's very in line with the 2013 movie. Because at first I didn't like it, because of reasons we talked about, because it looked like something else that we have talked about before, another movie. But I rewatched it, and then I rewatched the scenes from 2013, and I was like, well, you know what, it goes really well. I think it could be good. And I like the idea.
We'll have to wait and see. Yeah. I need to rewatch the remake, I think.
Yeah.
Because I was looking at it from having just seen the original OG movie, where I didn't think it being a serious horror movie worked. Yeah. This trailer feels like it's trying to be a serious horror movie again, and not necessarily the dark comedy of the rest of the series. Yeah. So I was like, I'm a little worried, because what if it goes back to being just over the top and not landing on the target?
Yeah, that's a concern for me too, because it works best as a comedy, but there could be there weren't very many comedic beats in the remake either. It was more straightforward horror movie. But
I need to rewatch it, but there could be a reason why I've totally erased it from my memory as well if I didn't like it.
Yeah, because there's a lot of gore in that one too, and there'll be a lot of gore in this one. But
I'm not against gore, but it has to be done right.
Yeah,
in my opinion.
Yeah, exactly.
For my personal taste. Okay, well, final thoughts. What are your final thoughts on just, I guess, specifically the original OG Evil Dead and Evil Dead 2, whatever the specific name is you called it, because I don't remember.
Dead by Dawn. You should know it. They said it like Dawn. 40 times.
Oh, yeah, because I was like, I feel like because they were chanting, Dead by Dawn, Dead by Dawn, Dead by Dawn.
There you go. There you go. I think the first one laid a groundwork for a lot of things. Just laid the foundation. There were some creepy moments. There were some scary things established that would get carried over into something better in the future. Like Ash vs. Evil Dead, things like that picked up on it and did it better. But I think it falls short in so many ways, just too many ways, in character, in in over the top effects that weren't necessary, and yeah, just that whole department. And I think it found its tone in Evil Dead 2, and it's one of my favorite movies of all time. And it's just dark comedy horror classic is what it is. It's the Three Stooges meets uh, just absolute chaos and horror. So if that's your cup of tea, go watch it. It's just nonsense and fun, and it's great. It's great. But Ash is an icon. I think that movie's gonna be, forever. They don't think it's going away. But I love it. So
No, I don't think it's ever going away. My final thoughts pretty similar to yours, except for the first Evil Dead. I just don't like it. I don't like Sam Raimi in that movie. I don't like his style. I think it was a total flop just for me and what my personal tastes are. I don't like the seriousness of it. I don't like the characters. I don't like just the overboard of everything. I think it kind of has a little bit of a sexist undertone.
Yeah, it's a bad look.
I just don't. It's just not my jam. The second one though, I think he made a total left turn into comedy, and I think it totally redeemed the whole Evil Dead universe for me. I love the comedic hits in it. I think the gore matches the comedy so much better. I like that it has a better storyline. So Evil Dead 2, Dead by Dawn.
Dead by
Is
Dawn.
that it?
Dead by Dawn.
Dead by Dawn totally redeems the Evil Dead series for me. I think it's just so freaking ridiculous that it's awesome.
Yeah, and if I guess my advice as somebody who loves this series is if you're taking our advice, go watch the Evil Dead remake, see what you think of that, because it's the first one but done in a totally different way, and I think done better. And I think if you're a horror fan, you just want a straight up horror film, you'll enjoy that movie. If you want something like quirky and fun and just kind of ridiculousness that we enjoy, pick up Evil Dead 2, watch Army of Darkness, and watch Ash vs. Evil Dead.
If you don't enjoy horror movies that cross a line, pretend the first one doesn't exist. Just go straight to the second one. They give you a great backstory. If I had watched Dead by Dawn, Evil Dead 2, if I had watched that, not having ever seen the first one, I would have assumed that was the first movie of the Evil Dead franchise.
I should have just told you to do that.
Just to do that. I would have been like, I love Evil Dead.
You're like, this is great. Redeemed. But I think that's our advice, and I think that's our judgment. Evil Dead 2, superior sequel. Maybe one day we'll talk about horror sequels that surpass the original, but this is one of them. So if you're gonna choose one,
it doesn't happen often. But
yeah, watch Evil Dead 2 is what we're saying. It's the better one. It's the best one of the whole series.
Not Evil Dead 2. A Dead by Dawn.
Dead by Dawn. Dead by Dawn.
Dead by Dawn.
Yeah.
Dead by Dawn. Dead by Dawn.
Yeah.
But yeah, make sure if you haven't seen our other episodes, we are on Spotify and Apple Podcasts and YouTube and all the other places that you can listen to podcasts. And then also make sure. Oh yeah, what else?
Oh, we're on buymeacoffee.com. So go buy us a coffee.
Yeah,
if you like our stuff, because we need caffeine.
I run on coffee. And also make sure you follow us on Instagram and TikTok.
Yeah, and that's it for this week. We'll be back next time, and we'll see you then.
Bye.